Good afternoon. I am Vinu Krishnaswamy. I'm part of the technology team at One North. Today I'm here to talk to you about, we've talked about the age of intuition, right? Age of intuition. What are the technologies that are probably going to drive that? But before I get into it, I have a quick disclaimer to give you. Since I'm a technologist, I'm not a creative artist, but ChatGPT, hey, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And I generated all of my images, or most of my images, through ChatGPT, through Stability AI, which is a tool. So you're going to see a lot of the images are not perfect. To put it mildly, they're not going to be perfect. You're going to also see some of the prompts that I have used. You're probably not going to be able to read a lot of those, but still, this one says, side view of an Indian man standing in a button-down shirt. And that's what Stability AI generated for me. That could conclude my talk, to be honest, but I'll keep going. But I'm here it's very apparent to all of us, we're at an inflection point, right? One, because Kat said so. Thanks, Kat. But we can feel that we're at an inflection point where things are about to change, right? And we've been in this position before with the advent of PCs, right? At that point, a computer in every home was probably a pipe dream. It looked like a pipe dream. That's what happened. It changed the way that we lived, we work, and all of it. Then next, it was the internet. Internet, that also did the same thing, changed how we lived, changed how we worked, made a lot of things possible, connectivity and all of that. And then came the wonderful hands that hold the long phone. Mobile and social media came next, which we're still maybe a part of, right? And all of these have been inflection points for us. Through all of these, if you look at it, we've had a couple of things that have happened. One is there's been an explosion of data. We've talked about it all throughout the day. The explosion of data that we produce, especially with social media, right? The amount of content that's just being produced. And the other thing is there's been human interfaces with technology have become easier and have we started with a joystick, for example, right? Or punch cards, and then went into keyboard, mouse. Now it's voice, it is gestures and all of that, becoming easier to interface with technology, making it more accessible. And those are the two things that have been happening throughout. But still, even with all of these technological advances, we're still in a point where there's a digital world, there's a physical world, right? And that's where we're at. We are trying to be in a position where we can merge those two to engage our customers. So that's where we're at right now. If you want to take a long view from here, and since we're in Sundance, if you want to look at movies, no books in my presentation, just movies. If you take the long view from here, and if you look to Hollywood, what do you get? You either get a human battery, or you get a wasteland, or you get a surveillance state, right? These kind of always freak us out, but Hollywood is really good at it. But that's not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how do we engage with our customers, how do we keep them happy, how do we innovate and drive business value. So that's what we're going to talk about today with these technology trends. That's where the opportunity lies, right? It's bridging that gap between physical and digital, and how are we going to do that with the amount of data that we produce that we've not really used much of yet, and with the evolution of technology and how we interface with it. These are the three things that I'm going to talk about. Generative AI, extended reality, just AR, VR, metaverse, and IoT. Some of these are more mature than others. Some of these are differences in the hype cycle, but we'll get into it, and I'll kind of give you, for each of those, where are we right now, what's the opportunity, and how do we get started with those, right? Generative AI. Large language models. If you look at this, the hype cycle, I'm sure everybody here is aware of this hype cycle. It's just getting started. It's just in the last 6 months. And there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of tools that are coming out every week. A lot of more tech tools too, just integrating however they can with generative AI. There's a lot of hype. And the progress is real and fast. These two images for the same prompt, just a year apart, version 1 and version 5. That's how fast things are moving. In the last 6 months, you can kind of see it, right? To me, ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI tool, that it feels like oil to me, right? In the sense that you found oil in your backyard and made sure that it's not a leak, it's actual oil. That's great, but you can't put it in your car yet, right? And I compare oil, there's a few reasons I compare it to oil. One is just the versatility of how you use generative AI is just very oil-like, right? You can use it to generate code, like we were talking about this morning. You can create images, like I've done through this presentation, text, video, audio. You can use it for some meta things as well, like generating data to train other models. And it's very different from other machine learning models that we've seen before. Most of them are very specialized, right? I want to identify words in an image. That's very specialized. That model can't be used anywhere else. But ChatGPT is a little, generative AI is a little different from that. There's also another reason. Oil, a lot of smoke. Generative AI, a lot of smoke as well. It is a language model, right? It is not a truth machine. It's not accurate. Versatility versus accuracy is the way that I see it. The more versatile it is, less accurate it can be. But there's a lot of impact, right? The good and the bad. Job market, apparently research done by Accenture says 40% of our working hours can be impacted with generative AI, right? It's not loss of 40% of the workforce. It's more about you could use ChatGPT for 40% of your work to make it more efficient. And there's probably going to be some job losses as well. For example, I don't know if you've heard of Chegg. It is a homework help. If any of your kids are using it, they're basically having someone else do their homework and paying for it. ChatGPT, generative AI can do that for free, or for very little money. So there's some industries that are getting affected immediately. But then there's the other side of it. One study that I've noted here is a Fortune 500 company with a very complex B2B product has customer support agents where typical customer support call could be 40 to 45 minutes. So it's a very intense product. On that, a study was done using ChatGPT, the product itself, an earlier version of it, that increased retention and productivity by 14%, right? So it definitely helps with training new people up quite easily. There are some big concerns, right? Generative AI, ChatGPT specifically, used a lot of the content that we've created in social media to train themselves, right? To train the model. But that pipe is going to get turned off. Like Twitter and Reddit are already like, you can't use my data for free. And then what happens to the cost? It's very nominal cost right now, but that definitely increases the cost of these products. Liability issues, IP issues, security issues, all of those are there, and regulations. And all of that is going to bring up regulations faster than we've seen with other newer technologies. And EU and China are already on it. US seems like it may be on it because there was a Senate hearing a few weeks ago that was not much grandstanding, which was nice to see. But those are the things that are going to bring up regulation. And these concerns are even for simple use cases. Say, for example, you just have a lot of meetings that you want to summarize faster. So you send it to ChatGPT. Over time, at scale, it's just a lot of data that you're sending somewhere that you're not controlling. Right? And that's a big concern for enterprises. So I think generative AI has a lot of potential. But like oil, before we can take that oil and put it in your car, you'll have to go through a process. And that includes having your own models, not training the models and having them hosted within yourself, and the sustainability and privacy and security concerns that surround that, as well as, and once you have that model and you've trained it up, then you have to build your tools and applications to use it and then guide your users, or your employees or your users on how to use it, what the pros and cons are. So I think that's where we have to start. Is the one thing that I want to mention about the versatility is that because it's so versatile, there's going to be a lot of different departments within your enterprise that want to be using it, that want to use it in different ways. Your legal department is going to use it completely differently from your finance department versus your marketing department. And so bottom-up ideas, I think a lot of technology, that's why it's so promising, is that you can use it for many different things. But that also means that you have to pick and prioritize use cases that already have a lot of data, like your customer service calls, your website analytics, and that already has a lot of data that you probably have to clean up, right? There's a lot of activity that has to happen there. And you also need to put together some operationalizing part of it, around it. You'll need a multidisciplinary team. You'll need all of those, data science, legal, InfoSec, IT, all of them have to be involved in it, and you'll have to monitor for bias, monitor for privacy, monitor for security, and then train people for us to actually get the whole sense of ChatGPT. That is a very weird picture for next steps, very red rum. The next one that I want to talk about is extended reality, AR, VR, and metaverse. This almost, to me, when I think about it, it feels like it's the next step in the internet, on the web, right? You had just computers, you can connect, you had social media. Next, let's AR, VR, just seems like the next step. But it hasn't really affected our day-to-day life yet. I don't know what the reason for that is. Maybe we're all just like, I want to see people after 3 years of just being shut house, right, in the house. Or maybe the applications that we've seen so far are very gimmicky for AR, VR, and metaverse, right? And they've kind of failed to be as exciting as they were promised to be. I don't know, but we'll see. But there is a lot of potential, right? Gaming and social media are a big right now. That's where it seems like there's a lot of potential. But there's also a lot of industries that, like real estate and healthcare, that require some kick in the butt to move forward and redefine that experience, like we've talked about today. The numbers say that too. Numbers are always fascinating to see. These are projections, 52 billion worldwide by 2027, which is only 4 years away. So we'll see how that ends up. But there are some very cool examples of brands that are doing something new with all of these. This is, if you don't have 8-year-old kids, this is Roblox. And this is Nike's store in Roblox. Roblox is a universe that you can go and create games, and other users can come and play. Nike actually sells NFTs on this. The first time I saw this number, I was very surprised. They have sold $185 million of NFTs. What are those NFTs? There are shoes, digital shoes for avatars of people running around in Roblox, right? It's a really great way for revenue generation that is kind of new. So that's the Mikey logo. Is it Mike or Mikey? I don't know. Nike is all, I know this is kind of lazy, but I generated through AI to see how it'll do, and this is what it did. They're also introducing AR, VR experiences in the store to kind of market their sustainability efforts. So there's a lot of things that you can do for customer engagement with AR, VR, and the metaverse. The other place that we're seeing it used quite a bit is in training. Walmart uses AR, VR training for emergency situation training. Volkswagen in assembly training, BOA in new employer orientation. You can see a lot more of that too. So some use cases that I'm calling out for AR, VR, and the metaverse. And obviously, I don't even want to talk a lot about this hybrid workplace. If this was a mature technology when the pandemic happened, maybe it would have been a little bit easier on us. Let's see. Those images, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror on that. Our design team did freak out when these images were sent over to them. Some big challenges do remain though, right? Apple just came out with their VR headset. That's $3,500. How popular could that be at that price point? So the hardware cost is still extremely high. There's a lack of standards, security and privacy as well. But the last two are the ones I feel like are the biggest challenges in here. For example, if you take the Apple Vision Pro, everything that you can do on it while you're wearing it is something that you can do on your phone, right? So what is the point of Vision Pro? But we were in this place when the phones got introduced, right? We could do everything that we did on our phone on our laptop, but we did find uses for it, and I think that's where it's really in the initial stages. But there's a lack of sticky use cases here. There's a lot of AR applications where you can put furniture in your room, but there's not a lot of engagement in those, right? And all of the applications that you're seeing in AR VR have a bit of a UX problem. Talk to Zach about that. And I think in a world where we're earning for connection, that's why we're all here, and to go to the bear claw. We need to focus. It's very different from what I said about generative AI, in that there's a lot of bottom-up ideas, right? But in AR, VR, I feel like we have to have targeted use cases that are innovative and that can actually engage our customers, like Nike. So that's where you start, is to brainstorm for those use cases and AR, VR ideas that are adding value to customers and not being very gimmicky, right? And while you're doing that, you also have to make sure that your digital assets are AR, VR ready, and that could be a big lift as well, so pay attention to that and the UX. Next up, we're going to talk about IoT. IoT, the first time when we were going through this rehearsal, a lot of my colleagues were IoT, isn't that like an old thing? In my mind, IoT is the complementary to AR, VR. Like if AR, VR is imposing the virtual world into the real world, IoT is the opposite, right? That's a very simplistic statement, but that's how I see it. But after I heard that conversation, IoT really a thing anymore, I looked at the height chart, and I don't blame them for seeing that. I've never seen a set of technologies that are all in the throw of disillusionment, right? So it's going to take some maturity to hit that productivity phase. In the current state, it's all about smart assistants and wearables, at least in our consumer world. Apple Watches and our smart assistants, that's where it is. But I think there's more to IoT. I really like this quote about IoT. It's not about putting RFID tags on dumb things that we can then know where they are at, right? It's about embedding intelligence into those, so we can make real-time decisions, and we can make real-time decisions and get insight from those devices directly, right? I think that's where the opportunity is for IoT, and that's what you're seeing in the numbers. Let me dive into that a little bit more. So IoT is not one technology, right? It's a set of technologies. I'm going to talk about just the first three here: sensors, connectivity, and cloud, right? Those are the three things that I think requires a little bit of a maturity. Sensors and connectivity a little more than cloud. Sensors, when Apple Watch first started out, right? I'm doing the thing where I have to talk about Apple anyways. So when Apple Watch first started out, it was just an extension of the phone, right? You could read your email, read your text messages, and all of that. But now, as the sensors mature through hardware or through software, you can detect arrhythmias. You can detect if you fell down or not. Yeah, you can detect your blood sugar maybe. You can, if it's not there, it's probably coming. You can detect your oxygen level. So that now, with all those sensors, either hardware or software built in, it becomes a useful health device, right? So I think that's where the maturity of sensors has to grow before we see that intelligence built in to the IoT devices. Connectivity is a new one too. 5G is just getting started, right? It's not mature yet. And then there's the other piece of connectivity where if you say you're in an agricultural field, you have sensors that are detecting soil fertility or water level, things like that. You need low power, high range connectivity for all those devices to communicate to the cloud, right? And then when we talk about the cloud, you probably heard these terms in your web development world, but really they originated in IoT. And edge computing, headless, all of those, we probably heard all of them in the web context, but this is where they originated, because you have to have that intelligence, the cloud intelligence built in closer to those devices so that you can act on them in real time. So I think those are the components that will probably have to grow for this technology to mature and hit that productivity. But this is where they're being used. This is probably not new to us. Smart cities, warehouses, agricultural sensors, and that's where they're starting to be used right now. And then to detect tall women with one leg. And what they're doing in your stores. I know we've talked about a lot of data being generated, but one thing that maybe is lacking is first-party data of what people are doing in our stores. Like the concept of Amazon Go, right? If that's extended out, where you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a known user, or just what people are doing within your store could add on to what people are doing on your website. In e-commerce to drive some decisions, right? So that's where it could be used. But for now, there are some big challenges, like we talked about. If IoT grows as it is predicted to, the number of devices that are just going to be out there and that will need maintenance is just mind-boggling. And that needs to be figured out. Right? There's a lack of standards. We talked about sensors and connectivity having to mature still. Security and privacy, you're just going to see this. I just put that there for everybody, everything, I guess, as I noticed, because that's a concern for all of us, right? And where do you start? I think at this point, as the sensors that we particularly want for our business case get developed, we'll have to make do without them. And for that, that's our phone is our IoT device, right? Using innovative apps and some kind of gamification is, I think, where it lies in this technology. There's still a lot more maturing to do before we can use it for generating revenue or operating efficiency. I'll get back to this. All these technologies that I talked about have a very big potential to lead us here, right? And I think we have to build a path forward, taking privacy, security, and sustainability in mind. This image, by the way, is the most disappointed I've been in the images. It was not the people images. If you look at the prompt was, it's a zoomed out view of a long winding road being built in between a forest. Show only trees in the forest. Have a paver in the middle of the picture laying the road. Make the road 4 lanes, center the view on the road. None of that happened. Not one thing there. But getting back to the point, I think as we start maturing these technologies and starting using them, security, privacy, and sustainability are going to be very important. It's kind of weird as technologists. I've never participated in privacy and security, yes, but not at the point of talking about sustainability, and not just green energy, but also a sustainable society that is equitable and fair, right? And then that's weird being part of it. I think we should have been a part of it when social media came out, right? Because we learned everything that it can do to a society. But I think so it's important for us as technologists to be part of this conversation and to dive head on into it. But then hopefully that'll lead us to these 2 movies. It was really hard to find movies that portrayed technology in a good way without a dystopian view. These are 2 that I found. That tells you about Hollywood. But not great movies, but great vision of what technology can do that can work alongside us to build the future that we want. I'll leave you with this quote. If future generations are to remember us more with gratitude, we must achieve more than just the miracles of technology. We must also leave them a glimpse of the world as it was created, not just how it looked when we got through with it.